Hello, I'm Scott Chacon, the CEO of GitButler. Today, we're going to be going over GitHub's new Stacked PRs feature. So, a few days ago, GitHub released Stacked Pull Requests, which means instead of doing, let's say you have a bunch of changes, instead of doing one big pull request that says, hey, here's a whole bunch of changes I've been working on, you can split them up so that they can be individually reviewable or even deployed one piece at a time. Historically, it's been somewhat difficult to do stacked PRs without some sort of tooling. Git kind of does it, but you have to set a bunch of config values and stuff to move references around when you rebase. You have to be doing a lot of rebasing. I think the easiest way to do it is with GitButler. So we're going to show you how to do that, how to open up stacked PRs, and how to use GitButler to manage them. So let's get started. So let's say that I have a bunch of changes that I've made to a project. Now, I'm going to show you two different things to do. One is the way that we probably would have done this, right? We could have been making commits as we're going. Maybe we didn't make a bunch of commits. We want to finally sort of submit this and get it integrated. Generally, what you'll do either way is you'll open up one PR that has all the changes in it. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So we'll just make one big change. You can see that all of the files are in there. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and open up a PR on that. And if you have the integration set up in GitButler, then obviously this is relatively easy. You get a nice URL. We can go over there and take a look at this. And we can see that, we don't have a little description on there, but it's the one commit that we had. And it's all of the files, right? And so we have a relatively large change. We have, 2,500 line change. So now let's look at doing the same sort of thing with stacked PR. So let's go ahead and undo that. So there's a couple different ways that we can do this now that we're back at the beginning. We can create branches, put one commit or multiple commits in each of them, and sort of commit the changes that we have in progress into those. If we had already had some commits and we liked what they were like and we didn't want to change them around or whatever, we could stack branches using the normal GitButler techniques. What I want to do, just for the sake of speed, is to make my agent do it. So if you load the GitButler agent skill, so there's another episode on this, but if you would just see what it looks like, agent setup, it will say, hey, what of these, sort of agents do you want to use? You can apply them globally or just to this. And I can say the ways that I like to work so that the agent knows kind of what to do. And once that's applied, then now we can just launch any of the agents that we want to use and ask it to take the work in progress and create stack branches for us that are easy to review. So let's go ahead and do that. I have a whole bunch of changes introducing a web server to the ticket project period. What I'd like you to do is split this up into three or four unique changes. Start with the base and then add the viewing of the tickets and then add the viewing of the write-ups so that they're very easily independently reviewable as atomic chunks. Now, obviously, you don't have to do that whole big old spiel, but however you want to split, you can also just say, hey, commit this into, a stacked branch of multiple topic based commits or something like that. But let's go ahead and see what it does. Okay, so now as this is running, we can go to the GitButler GUI and we can see that it's already, creating a branch and starting to add commits into that. We can also do that if we open up another terminal here, but TUI, and that will give us sort of the same thing. And this should auto update as we're going. So as it's creating commits, we should see the commits and branches coming in here. Okay, so we can see the next branch coming in here, TI serve, sort of the basic one, and then the tickets that comes as a second one. And it should keep stacking commits on these branches so that when we submit it, we can independently review all of these. Okay, so now we're done. We can see that we have four branches here, each with one commit. And we can do a whole bunch of things, actually. I mean, we can go in, if you wanted to, you could actually add an empty commit and move, sort of split up these commits, right? And get two commits in there. That's still going to be a stack branch. The actual review that you're doing is going to be the same thing. And then you can create PRs and push it. What I'm going to actually do is do that from here. So you can see also it sees that I have sort of two commits that I split them up into here. But I'll do PR. And since we can tell if GitHub is using the stacked PRs in this particular case, we will open them up using the GitHub API for this. So What I want to do is I want to submit all of these. And if you submit a stack of branches this way, we'll open up Stack PRs on GitHub the proper way. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So for each one of these, we're going to have to create a PR description, but it will pre-fill them for us, especially in this case, since we only have one commit for all of them for the most part. That one didn't, but we'll go ahead and do that. So now when we go and we look at the PRs that GitButler created, they should be stacked. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Here is the top of the stack, right? So now we have stacked branches. We can go to any point in the stack here and individually review them. So this one only has 300 changes in that. The second stack has 800 changes, and the third stack, if line changes, has about 1,000, and then the top one has 146. So the thing is when you merge these, right? Like when you actually go down to the bottom and you say merge the top of the stack, it's going to have the same effect as if you had the one PR that's open, right? All the same files are changed, all the same differences are going to go in. It's just that you can sign off on these sort of one at a time and decide, or merge up to this point in the stack and keep working on the top of the stack. And so it helps you kind of break up, well, larger chunks of work into something that's a little bit more easily reviewable. And the other nice thing about GitButler, this is something that is more difficult to do. For example, let's actually go to our GitButler GUI. This is something that's more difficult to do in something like Graphite or even GHStack, which is the GH extension that GitHub has to help manage some of this. If you have more than one commit on a branch, it's a little bit more difficult to sort of modify this bottom one, right? So if I did want to sort of split these up differently, so these two have different types of files, you can see that everything on top of that has been changed. And so I'm going to have to sort of force push all of this. So you really only have to force push the top one. It'll push everything below it as well. But let's go ahead and look at the website now. So now if we look at this particular one, we can see the unified diff is exactly the same, but the files that are modified are different in them now. So this top one only has one and the bottom one has two. Actually, it might be a little bit easier to see if I change one of the things. So instead of TA write-up stuff, somebody could say that's not a good way of doing that, right? So I can edit this, reword this commit. TA write-ups, very professional. Now force push that. And when that's done, we can see it's been updated in the stack, right? So you can modify files, you can modify any of these changes in these commits. From a review standpoint, it's all the unified diff. So I'm just looking at the files that are changed from both of those put together in that PR. You can also change the order of stacks. You can move commits sort of from one to the other, right? Like I can take this commit, for example, and move it into this PR instead, right? And then push that, and then that changes the unified diffs of both this one for review and this one for review. But again, it's relatively easy to do that type of thing. Let's see what that looks like here. So now if I do this, there's only one commit in this. There's fewer lines in that particular one. But if I go to the top one, now I have that second commit in there. So it's relatively easy to manage your stacked PRs this way and update them and get them merged. And if you're comparing this to something like the GHStack extension that GitHub does, or something like a tool like Graphite, which I actually don't believe can update GitHub Stacked PRs at this point, but like it is a nice, easy way of managing stacked PR. So go ahead and download GitButler, connect it to GitHub, and now it's really easy to sort of drag and drop these things around or give these tools to your agent and say, here's how I want you to split up my work so that it's easily reviewable. So go ahead and try out GitButler and GitHub Stacked PRs today. Thanks.